The massive prison ship, Star Guardian, drifted silently through the darkness of space. Its metal walls housed thousands of prisoners from dozens of alien species across the galaxy. But today was different. Today, the ship was receiving its first human prisoners. Guard Captain Red-Eye walked down the dimly lit corridor, his 4 arms holding different data tablets as he reviewed the new arrival information. His species, the Guardians, had been running the galaxy's prison system for over 300 years. They were known for their perfect record, no escapes, no major riots, and excellent control over their inmates. "Sir," his assistant Bluehorn called out, hurrying behind him. "The human transport has docked. There are 20 of them." Red-Eye's upper right hand scratched his scaled chin. 20. "Put them in Block D, spread them out, 1 human per cell block." "But sir," Bluehorn's antenna twitched nervously, "wouldn't it be more efficient to keep them together? We always group species together. It helps with food distribution, environmental controls, and prevents fights between different species." "No." Red-Eye's voice was firm. "I received special instructions from Central Command. Humans must be kept apart. No exceptions." Bluehorn wanted to argue but knew better. They reached the docking bay just as the transport doors opened. 20 humans in magnetic restraints walked out in a single file line, escorted by armed guards. They looked so small and weak compared to the other species on the ship. Most alien prisoners were at least 8 feet tall, with natural armor or enhanced strength. These humans looked fragile in comparison. The first human, a male with dark hair who they called Prisoner 1984, looked around with curious eyes. He seemed too calm for someone just sentenced to life in prison. The others showed various reactions, some scared, some angry, some seemingly bored. But they all had the same look in their eyes, a look that made Red-Eye's scales itch. "Process them quickly," Red-Eye ordered. "I want them in their assigned cells within the hour." As the guards led the humans away, Red-Eye noticed something odd. The humans weren't talking to each other, but they were watching. Always watching. Their eyes moved between the guards, the doors, the ventilation shafts, and the control panels. It was subtle, but Red-Eye hadn't become captain by missing details. Later that night, in his private quarters, Red-Eye accessed the classified files about humans. Most of it was standard information, their home planet, biology, strength levels. But then he found a report that made his blood run cold. It detailed an incident from 10 years ago, at another prison facility. The facility had housed 30 human prisoners together. They escaped within a week. The report described how the humans had worked together in ways no other species had ever done. They shared knowledge, created plans using nothing but quiet whispers and subtle gestures, and turned harmless everyday items into tools and weapons. Their escape led to the death of 12 guards and the release of over 300 other prisoners. The final paragraph of the report was clear: humans possess an unprecedented ability to cooperate, innovate, and adapt. When placed together, they become exponentially more dangerous. The only effective containment strategy is complete separation. 1 human alone is manageable. 2 humans together are a threat. 3 or more is an almost guaranteed security breach. Red-Eye closed the file and looked out his window at the stars. The humans were now spread across 20 different cell blocks, each surrounded by different species who couldn't even communicate with them. It seemed like an excessive precaution for such physically weak creatures. But as he remembered those watchful eyes, the subtle glances, and the unsettling calm of Prisoner 1984, Red-Eye felt a shiver run down his spine. Perhaps the precautions weren't excessive enough. In cell block D, Prisoner 1984 sat quietly on his bed, staring at the ceiling. To any observer, he looked like a model prisoner, already accepting his fate. But in his mind, he was counting steps, memorizing guard rotations, and calculating distances. He knew the others would be doing the same thing in their cells. They didn't need to talk to each other. They didn't need to be in the same cell block. They were human. They would find a way. The first day of their imprisonment was ending, but their plan was already beginning. The guards didn't understand that keeping humans apart wouldn't stop them. In fact, it was about to make things much, much worse. Red Eye special instructions had one fatal flaw. They were based on that incident from 10 years ago, where 30 humans had escaped within a week. But they had missed the most important detail: those 30 humans had been caught again within a month. Not because they made mistakes, but because they stayed together as a group. This time would be different. 20 humans, spread across 20 cell blocks, would mean 20 different opportunities. 20 different distractions. 20 different ways to create chaos. As the prison ship's artificial night cycle began, Prisoner 1984 smiled slightly. They had one advantage their captors couldn't understand: humans didn't need to be together to work together. Their shared understanding of human nature, their common goals, and their natural creativity would be enough. The Star Guardian continued its journey through space, carrying its dangerous new cargo. In 20 different cells, 20 humans waited patiently, each knowing their role in what was to come. The guards had no way of knowing that by keeping them apart, they had just made their biggest mistake. The real question wasn't why human prisoners were always kept apart, it was why anyone thought that would be enough to stop them. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived on the Star Guardian. On the surface, everything seemed normal. The prison ship maintained its strict routine, and the human prisoners appeared to be adapting well to their confinement. Guard Captain Red Eye sat at his desk, reviewing the daily reports. Something was different, but he couldn't figure out what. The humans were model prisoners. Too perfect, perhaps. Each one followed the rules exactly, never causing trouble, always polite to the guards. It made his scales itch. "Sir," Bluehorn entered his office with a concerned look. "We have some odd requests from various cell blocks." Red Eye's upper eyes narrowed. "What kind of requests?" "Well, that's the strange part. In Block D, the cleaning crew wants to change their schedule. In Block F, the kitchen staff is requesting different food storage containers. Block J needs new light fixtures, and Block M's air recycling system is supposedly making strange noises." "Those sound like normal maintenance issues," Red Eye said, but his antenna twitched with unease. "Yes, but..." Bluehorn shuffled nervously. "All these requests came from sections housing human prisoners. And they all came within the last 2 days." Red Eye stood up quickly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Show me the security feeds. Now." In the monitoring room, they reviewed footage from all 20 cell blocks containing humans. Each human was going about their daily routine, eating, exercising, reading, sleeping. But Red Eye watched longer, focusing on the small details. Prisoner 1984 in Block D always seemed to be cleaning his cell at the same time the maintenance crew passed by. The human in Block F volunteered to help in the kitchen during meal prep. Another helped change light fixtures, and one reported mechanical problems that required engineer visits. "They're mapping the ship," Red Eye whispered, his scales turning pale. "Each one is learning different systems, different routines. They're gathering information. But they can't communicate with each other," Bluehorn protested. "They're separated by hundreds of meters and multiple security barriers." Red Eye remembered the classified report. "They don't need to communicate. They think alike. They're all working toward the same goal, even without direct coordination." He turned to his assistant. "Cancel all maintenance requests from blocks with human prisoners. Double the guard patrols. And get me everything we have on human problem-solving patterns." But it was already too late. In Block D, Prisoner 1984 had memorized the cleaning crew's entire schedule. He knew which guards were lazy about checking maintenance badges, which corridors were cleaned last, and most importantly, which cleaning supplies could be turned into something else entirely. The human in Block F had learned the kitchen's inventory system. She knew exactly how long it took for missing items to be reported, which containers were checked regularly, and which ones weren't. Each human was doing their part, gathering pieces of a puzzle they couldn't share but somehow all understood. It was like 20 different people solving the same maze. They might take different paths, but they were all heading toward the exit. That night, as Red-Eye studied human behavior reports, small changes began happening throughout the ship. A cleaning solution was mixed slightly differently in Block D. A food container in Block F was stored at the wrong temperature. A light fixture in Block J flickered in an odd pattern. The air recycling system in Block M made strange noises at random intervals. None of these changes were significant enough to trigger alarms. They weren't even notable enough to include in daily reports. But they were spreading, creating tiny imperfections in the Star Guardian's perfect routine. In his cell, prisoner 1984 lay on his bed, running calculations in his head. The cleaning solution would take 3 more days to weaken the cell door's magnetic lock. He didn't know what the others were doing, but he didn't need to. He knew humans. When the time came, there would be 19 other distractions spread across the ship. Red Ice research was revealing disturbing patterns. Humans had an unusual ability to work with incomplete information. They could make reasonable guesses about what others would do in similar situations. They called it, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. More worrying was their tendency to create what they called backup plans. Unlike other species who would focus on making one plan perfect, humans would create multiple imperfect plans, expecting some to fail but knowing others would succeed. "Sir," a guard burst into Red Ice's office. "We found something strange in Block D's maintenance reports. The cleaning crew has been using different chemical mixtures than usual." "Lock down Block D immediately," Red Eye ordered. "Search every cell, every corridor." But as alarms blared in Block D, warning lights started flashing in Block F. Then Block J reported electrical issues. Block M's air recycling system suddenly shut down. Red Eye stared at the mounting emergency reports with growing horror. The humans hadn't been planning an escape, they had been planning 20 different escapes. Each one designed to draw attention and resources away from the others. In the chaos that followed, nobody noticed that the small changes across the ship had created exactly the kind of emergency situation that required crew members to carry override keys for all security systems. Keys that would be needed to reach emergency stations quickly. Keys that would work on any cell in any block. The Star Guardian's perfect routine was about to be shattered, not by one massive breach, but by 20 small imperfections working together to create something much bigger. The humans didn't need to be together to think together, and that was what made them truly dangerous. As Red Eye rushed to coordinate the response to multiple emergencies, he finally understood why the original report had gotten it wrong. Keeping humans apart didn't weaken them, it made them stronger. Because now, instead of having to protect against one escape attempt, they had to protect against 20. And humans, as he was about to learn, were very good at exploiting chaos. Alarms blared throughout the Star Guardian as multiple systems failed simultaneously. Red Eye rushed through the corridors, his 4 arms working frantically on different data tablets as reports flooded in from all sections of the ship. "Block F's kitchen storage is on fire," a guard shouted through the comm system. "The suppression systems aren't responding." "Block J's power grid is fluctuating," another voice called out. "We're losing artificial gravity in sections 3 through 7. Block M's life support is failing," a third voice added. "Oxygen levels are dropping in the entire section." Red Ice scales turned almost white with stress. Each emergency required immediate attention. Each one needed security personnel and maintenance crews. Each one meant opening security doors and bypassing normal protocols. "Sir." Bluehorn's voice cracked with panic over the comm. "The humans, they're all still in their cells." That stopped Red-Eye cold. In his experience, prisoners always ran at the first opportunity. But these humans were waiting. Why were they waiting? "Lock down everything," Red-Eye ordered. "No one moves without my direct authorization." But it was too late. The emergency protocols were already in motion. Crew members were rushing through the ship, carrying override keys to access critical systems. In their hurry to prevent disaster, they weren't following standard security procedures. In Block D, prisoner 1984 watched through his cell window as 3 maintenance workers rushed past, their override keys bouncing on their belts. The weakened magnetic lock on his cell door buzzed softly, the result of 3 weeks of carefully altered cleaning solutions. In Block F, the human prisoner smiled as smoke filled the corridor. The kitchen fire was small, controlled, but the smoke was thick enough to obscure the security cameras. More importantly, it had driven all the guards to the other side of the cell block. The human in Block J had spent weeks learning how the ship's power grid worked while helping change light fixtures. Now, as the gravity failed in carefully selected sections, crew members had to use magnetic boots to move around. Magnetic boots that made them slow, clumsy, and predictable. Magnetic boots that made them slow, clumsy, and predictable. Block M's prisoner had memorized the maintenance access tunnels while reporting air recycling problems. As oxygen levels dropped, emergency life support kicked in, opening all the access panels automatically. Red-Eye tried to coordinate a response, but the chaos was spreading faster than he could control. Then he realized something that made his heart stop. "The emergency protocols," he whispered. "They're designed to save lives first, maintain security second." That was when the first human made their move. In Block D, prisoner 1984's cell door sparked and slid open. The weakened magnetic lock had failed completely when the power fluctuated. He stepped out calmly, picked up a dropped override key, and walked away as maintenance crews rushed past, too busy with emergencies to notice one more person in a corridor. Seconds later, the human in Block F slipped out through the smoke, wearing a maintenance mask they'd stolen weeks ago. In Block J, another human floated freely in the zero gravity, using the confusion to move through maintenance shafts while the guards struggled with their magnetic boots. "Sir." Bluehorn's voice was frantic. "We're getting reports of loose prisoners in multiple blocks. How many humans have escaped?" Red-Eye demanded. "That's just it, sir. According to our sensors, most of them are still in their cells." Red-Eye checked the security feeds. He could see humans still sitting quietly in their cells across the ship. But something wasn't right. The way they sat, the way they waited. Those aren't real prisoners, he realized with horror. They've made decoys. Simple decoys, made from bedding and spare clothes, positioned carefully in poorly lit cells. The humans had known the guards would be too busy with emergencies to check closely. They had counted on the chaos to mask their initial escape. The real question was, where were they going? The answer came minutes later when the ship's engines suddenly powered down. Somehow, one of the humans had reached engineering. They didn't know enough about the alien technology to control it, but they knew exactly where to hit it to make it stop working. "Sir," a terrified voice came over the comm, "we're picking up approaching ships. They're prison transport vessels." Red-Eye's blood ran cold. The regular prison transport ships that passed by the Star Guardian every month. The humans had timed everything perfectly. They knew help would come when the ship stopped in space. But these humans didn't want to escape on the transport ships. No, Red-Eye realized, they wanted something else. The transport ships would dock, expecting to find a prison ship with engine trouble. They would open their doors, sending in maintenance crews and guards to help. And when those doors opened, warn the transport ships. Red-Eye shouted. Tell them not to dock. Tell them dash. The communication system went dead. Somewhere in the ship, another human had reached another critical system. Red-Eye stood in his command center, watching helplessly as his perfect prison descended into carefully orchestrated chaos. The humans had done more than create 20 different escape attempts, they had created 20 different distractions, 20 different ways to divide the guards' attention, 20 different paths to their real goal. They didn't want to escape the Star Guardian. They wanted to capture it. In various parts of the ship, 19 humans were moving through the chaos they had created, each one following their part of an unspoken plan. And somewhere, prisoner 1984 was heading toward the command center, knowing his fellow humans would be doing their jobs, creating the perfect storm of confusion and panic. The humans had turned the Star Guardian's greatest strength, its emergency protocols, into a weapon. Every safety measure, every backup system, every contingency plan was now working against the guards, forcing them to follow procedures that made them predictable and vulnerable. Red-Eye finally understood the true meaning of the report's warning. Keeping humans apart didn't stop them from working together. It just meant that when they did work together, they did it in ways no one could predict or prevent. As the transport ships drew closer and chaos engulfed the Star Guardian, Red-Eye realized that the humans had taught them all a valuable lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous prison break isn't about getting out. It's about letting others in. The first transport ship docked with the Star Guardian exactly 20 minutes after the engines failed. Red-Eye watched from the command center as the emergency crews rushed aboard, carrying repair equipment and medical supplies. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. Security team to docking bay 3. Red-Eye shouted into his comm unit, but only static answered. The humans had taken out the main communication systems, leaving only local emergency channels that worked for short distances. Through the security feeds that still functioned, Red-Eye could see his worst fears coming true. The humans weren't just loose, they were in control. Each one had picked a critical area of the ship: engineering, life support, communications, security, and more. They hadn't needed to talk to each other to know which systems were most important. In the main docking bay, 2 humans had positioned themselves perfectly. One wore a stolen maintenance uniform, directing the incoming emergency crews with confident gestures. The other, hidden in the shadows, was quietly collecting weapons from the unsuspecting rescue workers. "Sir!" Bluehorn burst into the command center. "We've lost contact with 3 more cell blocks. The other prisoners, they're getting out." Red-Eye's scales rippled with fear. Of course, the humans weren't just freeing themselves. They were releasing other prisoners, creating even more chaos, more confusion, more bodies for the guards to track. But something was different about these releases. The humans weren't freeing everyone. They were choosing specific prisoners, ones that could be useful. The strongest for heavy lifting, the fastest for running messages, the most technically skilled for working with ship systems. They were building a crew. "Lock down the command center," Red-Eye ordered. "This is our last secure position. We can't let them dash." The lights went out. When the emergency lighting came on seconds later, prisoner 1984 was standing in the doorway. He looked exactly as he had 3 weeks ago, calm, observant, and far too confident for a prisoner. "Hello, Captain," he said quietly. "I think it's time we talked about the future of this ship." Red-Eye's upper hands reached for his weapon, but the human was faster. Not with a weapon, but with words. "Your crew is alive," prisoner 1984 said. "All of them. We have no intention of hurting anyone who doesn't resist. That's more than you did for us when you locked us away." "This is impossible," Bluehorn whispered. "You couldn't have coordinated all this. You were separated." The human smiled. "That's where you made your mistake. You think we need to talk to work together. We don't. We just need to think like humans. Through the viewport, Red-Eye could see the second transport ship approaching. On his screens, he watched as more humans took control of key systems. Each one worked with perfect efficiency, as if they had rehearsed this 100 times. How? Red-Eye demanded. How did you know what the others would do? Because it's what I would do, Prisoner 1984 explained. It's what any human would do. We don't need detailed plans. We understand each other. When you put us in different parts of the ship, you gave us access to every system you needed to protect. The human walked to the main control panel, his movements sure and precise. Right now, my fellow humans are doing exactly what I would do in their position. Taking control of vital systems. Gathering allies. Creating confusion. We all saw the same opportunity, the same weaknesses, the same solution. Red-Eye watched as the second transport ship docked. More rescue workers boarded, walking straight into the humans' trap. The Star Guardian, the most secure prison ship in the galaxy, was falling without a single shot being fired. What do you want? Red-Eye asked, though he already knew the answer. Transportation, Prisoner 1984 said simply. You're going to help us take these ships back to human space. You're going to watch as we free every wrongly imprisoned human in every prison you run. And then you're going to tell everyone why human prisoners should never be kept apart. A message flashed on the main screen, the third and final transport ship was approaching. Red-Eye realized the humans had timed everything perfectly. They knew exactly how long it would take for help to arrive, exactly how many ships would come, exactly how to use the prison's own emergency protocols against it. You're not just prisoners, Red-Eye said, finally understanding. You're soldiers. Prisoner 1984 shook his head. No. We're just humans. This is what we do. We adapt. We cooperate. We survive. And we don't need words to work together, we just need a common goal. Through the ship's remaining security feeds, Red-Eye watched as more humans secured their positions. Each one had found exactly where they needed to be, exactly what they needed to do. No commands given, no signals passed, no communication needed. They had turned isolation into an advantage. They had turned separation into strength. They had turned a prison into a staging ground for something much bigger. The galaxy's about to learn something important, Prisoner 1984 said, looking out at the stars. Keeping humans apart doesn't make us weaker. It just means you'll never know what we're planning until it's too late. Red-Eye understood now why the original report had been so wrong. It wasn't just about preventing humans from communicating. It was about understanding how humans think, how they adapt, how they turn disadvantages into advantages. The Star Guardian had become more than a captured prison ship. It had become a lesson, one that would spread across the galaxy. Never keep humans apart. Because when you do, they don't become less dangerous. They become impossible to stop. The Star Guardian's command center had become a hub of activity, but not the kind Red-Eye was used to seeing. Humans and their chosen alien allies moved with purpose, transforming the prison ship into something else entirely. Something more dangerous. The third transport ship is requesting docking clearance, Bluehorn reported, now working under the human supervision. They're asking why the first two ships haven't reported back. Prisoner 1984 nodded calmly. Tell them exactly what they expect to hear. Engine malfunction. Complex repairs. Need additional support. Red-Eye watched as his former assistant transmitted the message. The lies flowed smoothly, naturally. The humans had made sure to keep key crew members at their posts, maintaining the illusion of normalcy to the outside world. Why are you letting us help? Bluehorn asked the human. Why not just lock us up? Because you're more valuable here, Prisoner 1984 explained. You know these systems. You know the protocols. And most importantly, you know we're not the monsters your leaders claimed we were. Through the ship's monitors, Red-Eye observed the other humans at work. Each one had gathered a small team of aliens around them, former prisoners and crew members who had chosen to cooperate. They weren't forced to help, they were convinced. In engineering, a human worked alongside a massive rock crusher, a species known for their strength but not their technical skills. Together, they were modifying the ship's engines, making them faster, more efficient. In the medical bay, another human directed a team of former prison doctors, preparing for whatever might come next. They weren't acting like escaped prisoners. They were acting like a crew preparing for a mission. The third transport has docked, Bluehorn announced. Red-Eye expected violence, expected chaos. Instead, he watched in amazement as the humans executed another perfect capture. The transport's crew walked into the same careful trap, met by what appeared to be normal prison staff dealing with an emergency. 23 minutes, prisoner 1984 said, checking a makeshift timer. Faster than the first two. We're getting better. That's when Red-Eye noticed something else. The humans weren't just taking control, they were teaching. Each human showed their alien teammates better ways to do things, more efficient methods, new ideas. They were building more than a crew. They were building a community. Send the signal, prisoner 1984 ordered. A message began broadcasting from the Star Guardian's communication array, spreading across the prison network. To most listeners, it would sound like routine updates, standard reports. But hidden in the ordinary transmission was something else. What did you just do? Red-Eye demanded. We sent a message to every prison in your system, the human explained. Not in words. In patterns. Changes in transmission timing. Variations in signal strength. Things only humans would notice, would understand. Red-Eye's scales paled. You're telling the other human prisoners that it's time, prisoner 1984 finished. They'll understand. Just like we understood what to do here. Humans don't need explicit instructions. We see patterns. We recognize opportunities. We know how other humans think. In the next hour, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Prison ships reporting engine troubles. Prison stations experiencing system failures. Prison colonies dealing with mysterious equipment malfunctions. The humans hadn't just captured the Star Guardian. They had started a chain reaction. You have to stop this, Red-Eye pleaded. The whole prison system will collapse. That's the point, prisoner 1984 said. Your system is built on fear and isolation. We're going to replace it with something better. Through the ship's communications, they picked up fragments of reports. More human prisoners breaking free. More aliens choosing to help them. More ships and stations falling under new control. But there was something else happening, something Red-Eye hadn't expected. The humans weren't just freeing their own kind. They were freeing anyone who had been unjustly imprisoned, anyone who would work with them toward a better future. You're starting a revolution, Bluehorn whispered. No, prisoner 1984 corrected. We're finishing one that started the moment you decided to keep us apart. You gave us time to think, plan, and understand your weaknesses. You gave us access to every part of your ships, your stations, your systems. All we had to do was wait for the right moment. The Star Guardian's engines hummed to life, but with a different sound than before. The human engineers had already modified them, made them better. They were ready to move. Where will you go? Red-Eye asked. Everywhere, the human replied. Your people spread us across the galaxy, thinking it would make us easier to control. Instead, you gave us footholds in every sector, every system. Now we're going to use them. More reports flooded in. More prisons falling. More humans coordinating without words. More aliens joining their cause. Red-Eye finally understood the full scope of the humans' plan. They hadn't just coordinated 20 prisoners on one ship. They had coordinated every human prisoner in the galaxy, creating a silent network of people who thought alike, who could understand each other without speaking, who could turn isolation into connection. "Remember this," Prisoner 1984 said as the Star Guardian prepared to jump to its next destination. "You kept us apart because you feared what we could do together. But you never understood what we could do apart. You never understood that humans don't need to be together to be united." The ship's new crew worked with practiced efficiency, as if they had been a team for years instead of hours. The humans had done more than escape, they had created something new, something that was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. As the Star Guardian disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Red-Eye realized that the humans had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Sometimes the most dangerous thing about humans isn't their ability to work together. It's their ability to work apart. 1 year later, Guard Captain Red-Eye stood before the Galactic Council, his scales now faded with stress and age. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from every spacefaring species, all gathered to hear his testimony about the event that had become known as the Silent Revolution. "Tell us, Captain," the council leader spoke, "how did it end?" Red-Eye's antenna twitched as he remembered those final days. "End? No, you misunderstand. It didn't end. It transformed." He activated a holographic display, showing the Star Guardian, but not as a prison ship. It had been rebuilt, modified, improved. Now it served as a mobile justice center, traveling the galaxy to help those wrongly imprisoned and to ensure fair trials for the accused. "The humans didn't just break out of our prisons," Red-Eye explained. "They broke our entire concept of justice and rebuilt it into something better." The display showed more ships, former prison vessels now converted into hospitals, schools, and rehabilitation centers. The humans had kept their word. They hadn't sought revenge. They had sought change. "Within 3 months of the Star Guardian's capture, 80% of our prison system had been transformed," Red-Eye continued. "The humans coordinated everything without ever needing central command. Each group just knew what the others would do." He showed footage from various facilities. Humans working alongside aliens, teaching new skills, building communities. Former prisoners and guards working together, creating something neither group could have built alone. "We thought isolation was a weakness we could exploit," Red-Eye said. "We were wrong. Humans don't need physical proximity to work together. They don't even need to communicate. They understand each other in ways we still can't comprehend." The council chamber filled with murmurs as Red-Eye displayed the statistics. Crime rates had dropped. Rehabilitation success had soared. The humans had turned a system of punishment into a system of growth. Prisoner 1984, though we now know him as Ambassador Mills, told me something important that day, Red-Eye continued. He said that keeping humans apart doesn't make them weaker. It makes them impossible to predict, impossible to control, and impossible to stop. The display showed the current state of the galaxy's justice system. The humans had created a network of centers focused on rehabilitation, education, and genuine reform. They called it the Second Chance Initiative. But the most remarkable thing, Red-Eye said, his voice filled with wonder, was how they changed us. Not through force, not through fear, but through understanding. They showed us a better way. He brought up the final image, a map of the galaxy showing hundreds of points of light, each representing a transformed facility. "We thought we were containing them. Instead, we were giving them staging grounds. We thought we were preventing communication. Instead, we were forcing them to develop something beyond communication." The council leader leaned forward. "And what would you say is the lesson we should learn from this?" Red-Eye looked at the assembled representatives, his 4 eyes scanning the chamber. "The lesson is simple: never keep humans apart. Not because they're dangerous together, but because they're unstoppable apart. They don't need to be in the same room, the same building, or even the same solar system to work as one. He paused, remembering the calm confidence in Prisoner 1984's eyes. But there's a deeper lesson too. The humans could have used this ability to destroy us. Instead, they used it to improve us. They showed us that true strength isn't in isolation or control, it's in cooperation and growth. The display showed one final image, the new symbol of the galactic justice system. It showed many hands of different species joined together, with the words "Unity through Understanding" written below. That's why human prisoners are no longer kept apart, Red-Eye concluded. Not because we fear what they'll do together, but because they taught us something invaluable. The greatest prison isn't built with walls or force fields. It's built with our own limitations in thinking and understanding. As Red-Eye finished his testimony, the council chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives debated the implications, the changes, the future. But Red-Eye's mind went back to that day on the Star Guardian, when he first understood what made humans truly unique. They had turned separation into strength. They had turned isolation into opportunity. They had turned prison into possibility. And somewhere out there, 20 humans who had never needed to speak to each other had started a revolution that changed the galaxy, not through violence or destruction, but through the simple, unstoppable power of human understanding. The story of why human prisoners were always kept apart had become more than a cautionary tale. It had become a lesson in hope, in potential, in the remarkable ability of humans to transform limitation into liberation. And in the end, that was the greatest escape of all.